It was not an unexpected accident that Chen Chang walked into a world that was fictional from the end of the Qing Dynasty to the beginning of the Republic of China. More than a decade ago, the New World gave birth to the source force due to the eerie explosions emanating from various places. Different sources of power create extraordinary beings through different paths. From now on, in the Qinhuai River amidst the sound of oars and the shadows of lights, there are water lovers stepping on the waves and singing. A lonely and long rain alley, passing by a girl holding a ghost doll. From Bachelor to Sanwei bookstore, beautiful snakes and flying centipedes block the way one after another. Keywords of the novel. Sword not properly matched with a person who is extraordinary without a pop-up window. Sword not properly matched with a person who is extraordinary with a person who is extraordinary. Download the complete set of TXT, sword not properly matched with a person who is extraordinary with a person who is extraordinary with a person who is extraordinary. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Triangle Inner Angles End. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Triangle Inner Angles and its mid-spring, noon, in the Mayflower community. Chen Guangfu was writing furiously on the table, with a pile of A4 paper filled with words piled high on his left. The rich aroma of Lao Ganma's chili fried meat in the kitchen caught his attention in no way. On one side of the desk, various books such as Black Hole and Curved Time and Space, Super Hybrid Rice Breeding and Cultivation, Feast of Elements, Universe in the Shell, Meditation on the Second Philosophy, Sophism, and so on are stacked one after another, each with rough edges due to excessive flipping. Dong, dong, the door was knocked. Chen Chang, go open the door and remember to wear a mask. Chen's mother in the kitchen shouted. Chen Chang agreed, put on his mask, opened the door, and two big white people stood at the door. The big white on the left turned around and revealed the name behind her, which was Miss Guan from the property management. Miss Guan tapped the plum blossom watch on her wrist and said, 1 hour later, your building will start taking nucleic acid tests. Chen Chang frowned, unwilling to meet anyone, but still responded to the call. Two big white people came downstairs, and the one who came with them whispered, this young man looks like an old man in his 20s, how can he have the same energy and spirit as a 50-year-old man? Miss Guan lowered her voice and said, their family is in a special situation. The young man doesn't like to talk or interact with people. But the people are still pretty good. Last time there was a power outage in the community, the electrician who came was a two-pronged man and couldn't solve the problem in half a day. In the end, the young man pointed out the key point in a few words and quickly solved the problem. Strangely, the young man had good grades but did not attend college. The teachers at school have tried to persuade me many times, but it's all in vain. Dubai, who came with him, said, this is too regrettable. His parents don't care about it. Miss Guan said, it's also pitiful to say. His family was originally a family of 5, and every 2 to 3 years they would leave. In 7 or 8 years, only the mother and son were left. When Grandpa and Grandma left, they were only in their 50s. Dubai, who came with him, took a deep breath and said, his feng shui is probably. I know a gentleman, and this is the most accurate. The conversation between the two white people entered a stall in the extraordinary realm, and Chen Guangjia's lunch was also served. Lao Ganma stir-fried meat with chili peppers, leeks and eggs, stir-fried cabbage, and a sponge-gourd egg soup. Although they are all home-cooked dishes, they are cooked well, have a bright color, and a fragrant aroma. Although the two of them were eating, Chen's mother kept putting vegetables in Chen's bowl. The two of them had a meal without any conversation. After a silence of more than 10 minutes, Chen Chang stopped his chopsticks and said, in a few days, it's Qingming festival. I want to go back to Huji. Chen's mother was taken aback and said, the epidemic is unstable. Let's watch it again next year. It's just a tomb of clothing in clothing, just a distant sacrifice. Don't think too much. You promised your mother that unhappy things will be forgotten. Chen's mother's voice fell, and countless scenes that appeared in nightmares appeared before Chen Chang's eyes, frame by frame like a movie film. A bowl of rice was quickly emptied, leaving only the sound of chopsticks and bowls pounding, which Chen Chang was still unaware of. Chen's mother stood up and gently hugged Chen Chang. Chen Chang regained his senses, rubbed his face, and gently stroked his mother's back. "Mom, I'm fine, I just miss my grandparents and dad a bit." As he spoke, the cloudless sky outside the window seemed to be covered with a layer of black cloth. The sound of cars, people, and horns on the road came to an abrupt end. Chen Guanru was struck by lightning and pushed away his mother, staring at her intently. Mom's thin face remained expressionless as she calmly looked at him and said in a deep voice, "Have you ever thought that the sum of the inner angles of a triangle may not necessarily be equal to 180 degrees? Chen Chang's tears burst into tears. He grabbed the water cup and quickly walked to the window, splashing half a cup of tea out. When he walked to the window, the previously tile blue sky had become extremely dark, and the sun seemed to be covered in a layer of gray. A gray-haired short-tailed pigeon hovered in mid-air, and a long queue of nucleic acid test-takers had already formed downstairs, resembling a downtime greedy snake. The only ones who can move are Chen Chang, Chen Mu, and that half-cup of tea. Tea is suspended in the air, spreading out droplets and instantly forming a huge water curtain, sealing the window. In the next moment, a green vine the size of a thumb rose out of the water curtain and approached Chen's mother from afar. Chen's mother remained calm and said, "Have you ever thought that there is no superposition state in the double-slit interference experiment?" Chen Gan rushed in front of Green Vine and tightly hugged his mother. The Green Vine seemed like a living creature, forcefully squeezing out a gap between the two and only tying Chen's mother. Chen Chang pulled out a nylon rope from his arms and tightly tied his mother and himself waist to waist, allowing Green Vine to drag him and his mother together towards the water curtain. Chen's mother was still saying, "Have you ever thought that Schro Dinger's cat would truly exist?" Chen's mother's spine touched the water curtain, and the nylon rope wrapped around her waist immediately turned into powder, floating in the air. Chen's mother was slowly dragged into the water curtain, but Chen Chang was like an impurity blocked by a filter, blocked outside the water curtain. Chen Quan roared and cursed, watching as his mother was gradually dragged into it. "Just like dragging my grandfather by the sand lake, my grandmother by the bathtub, and my father by the artificial lake on the campus in northern Xinjiang. He has no fear, only deep despair." Seeing Chen's mother's only exposed nose bridge slowly sinking into the water curtain, Chen Chang pulled out a jumping knife, popped out the blade, and with a puff, the tip of the knife penetrated his neck, decisively cutting back and forth through the arteries. Plasma spurts out, steaming hot. He collapsed to the ground with a relaxed expression on his face. "The nightmare that haunted me for a lifetime is finally coming to an end." Just as his consciousness was about to disappear, the water curtain rippled and another green vine emerged, much thinner than the previous one. Green Vine just emerged from the water curtain, frozen in mid-air, as if hesitating. After a few breaths, Green Vine finally leaned towards Chen Chang, and the rippling water curtain intensified. The pigeon suspended in mid-air blinked its eyes. It took Shideng a full 20 seconds to barely wrap around Chen Chang's left ring finger and slowly drag him into the water curtain. As Chen Chang was dragged in, the water curtain rippled as if boiling a pot. When Chen Chang was completely submerged in the water curtain, with a loud bang, the water curtain exploded and turned into fine tea droplets, slowly falling. The pigeons flew away, and the voices on the street were once again buzzing. The loudspeaker downstairs shouted again, from the 8th and 9th floors, "Come down for nucleic acid testing, maintain a 1-meter distance, queue up in an orderly manner, and open the health code in advance." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Suture Monster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 3. Abandoning Fantasy and Preparing for Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Abandoning fantasy and preparing for battle. Principal Fong smiled and said, "It's rare for Vice President Tan to have a good mood. How about I please my classmates? If there is a good answer, Vice President Tan will not hesitate to reward you." Vice President Tan laughed and said, "Anyway, since Principal Fong has spoken, I will take the lead. If I answer well, I can speak as an outstanding student representative at the Outstanding Middle School Student Commendation Conference held in Qingnan District next month." This statement completely ignited the enthusiasm of the students. As a representative of outstanding students, the prerequisite for speaking is naturally to become an outstanding student. That is to say, as long as you answer well, you can get an excellent middle school student indicator. Approaching graduation, the road ahead is vast. If one can achieve an excellent middle school student indicator, the future will be much easier to walk. For a moment, the students raised their hands one after another. As Qin Bing said, this question is too profound and too extensive, and the experience is not enough. The speech can only be superficial, and it is far from being a soft article. Su Shu was not interested and placed his hands under the table to continue his research. He began to hope that the green ring would be the legendary golden finger. He even quietly broke his fingertips and made a blood drop to acknowledge the owner, but unfortunately the ring did not respond. Thinking of the online articles he had read before, he let go of his dignity and quietly called out, "System Dad," but Green Ring Lousy didn't recognize him. Zhang Xing kicked him and said, "Chao Daming is going to speak. He has a head full of sorghum seeds, what can he spray?" Su Shu looked up and listened to Chao Daming's lengthy speech. After reciting many model essays, he finally reached the concluding stage. "My father, who served as the district council president, often taught me that a person's life can be ordinary, but it must not be mediocre. Finally, I hope to use a sentence from Teacher Qin as a conclusion. May we all have a bright future, facing the mountains and the sea, and spring flowers bloom." After Chao Daming finished speaking, there was a sparse round of applause from members of the small circle surrounding him. Vice President Tan stood up and said with a spring breeze on his face, "This student is not simple. He is not young and has a deep understanding of problems." Zhang Xingxiang said, "I can see it clearly. This horse is like a double read, starring Chao Daming and Vice President Tan." I said Vice President Tan came here strangely and asked strange questions. Emotions are specifically meant to bring benefits to Chao Daming. I bet Chao Daming must have prepared beforehand, otherwise he wouldn't be able to speak nonsense like that with his wooden head. Chao Daming seemed to hear Zhang Xing's discussion and looked provocatively towards this side. "Thank you very much for Vice President Tan's praise. I just felt it. If we can see the problem deeply, Su Shu in our class is a well-known philosopher in the school who is knowledgeable, has a strong memory, and has learned from ancient and modern times. I believe he must have a high opinion." Ha ha ha. The whole room was filled with laughter, and Su Shu weighed a few pounds and a few taels. Everyone knew it was just a saw-mouthed gourd. "The dog is so poisonous. It's burning fire on your head. Hurry up and urinate." Zhang Xing knows Su Shu's weaknesses too well. In this situation, it's better to kill him than to let him speak. Qin Bing also stared coldly at Su Shu, watching this annoying guy how to pass the level. Su Shu stood up tall and said in a loud voice, "There is no high opinion, but there is one suggestion. I suggest that Chao Daming's recent speech can be copied and published in the newspaper." Zhang Xing stared at Su Shu. Chao Daming sneered in his heart, begging for mercy. "You scumbag." Vice President Tan smiled and said, "Principal Fong, this student's suggestion can be considered." Principal Fong nodded repeatedly. Qin Bing snorted lightly, his eyes filled with disdain. The title of the article may be, "My Speaker's Father." Puff. Ha ha ha. The whole audience laughed uncontrollably. Zhang Xing vigorously patted the table and shamelessly winked at Chao Daming, whose face was swollen with red. Qin Bing couldn't hold his tension anymore, turned his head and shook his fragrant shoulders lightly. Vice President Tan's expression gradually solidified. Qiao Daming was so angry that his nose was crooked that he wished he could tear Su Shu alive. Su Shu's interference may ruin his outstanding high school student quota. The key is that Su Shu's portrayal of my speaker's father is too lethal and must be widely circulated. At that time, if Vice President Tan is willing to help, he will definitely have to worry about public opinion. Dogs, let's wait and see. Qiao Daming felt ruthless in his heart. Principal Fang shouted sternly, this student, if you can answer a question, just answer it. If you can't answer, sit down quickly and don't embarrass yourself. As instructed by the principal, I will follow suit. Reviving life once again, his personality became complex, blending Chen Chang's arrogance and despair with Su Shu's sensitivity and self-harm. He sighed and said, the so-called people who emerge from adversity become silent, but they are broken. The noisy classroom quieted down. In philosophy, there is a ship of special repair, which refers to a ship that has sailed on the sea for hundreds of years. The ship's ability to sail for such a long time is attributed to continuous maintenance and replacement of parts. As long as a wooden board rots, it will be replaced, and so on. Until all the components are not the original ones, is this ship still the original ship? In adversity, people are like ships on the sea. Will encounter various damages and have to undergo component replacement. After experiencing despair and helplessness, you will replace and rely on this component. After experiencing a friend's betrayal, you will replace the component of loyalty. Who is this in yin and yang? Zhang Xing stared blankly. The oppression of classmates will make you replace the component of friendship. Qiao Daming was furious and said, what kind of friendship does it have between a fierce tiger and a wild dog? The teacher's indifference requires you to replace the upper part. Qin Bing was listening attentively and immediately pulled down his face. Is this implying me? My colleague's rolling will make you replace the sincere component. Vice President Tan and Principal Fang exchanged a glance and quickly dodged. All of this includes parts such as poor communication, lack of survival skills, and so on. Walking through adversity is like sailing to shore. After replacing all the parts on his body, he will become stronger, better at absorbing resources, and better at survival. At the same time, he became even more shattered and no longer had any illusions at this point. Su Shu clenched his fist and said, therefore, he threw away his illusions and prepared for battle. After he finished speaking, the classroom was completely silent, and the wind outside the window blew, rustling through countless pages of books. Damn it! Zhang Xing let out a strange cry and slapped his palms. In the next moment, the applause converged into a tide. Vice President Tan's face held a purple hue. Principal Fang noticed something was wrong and stopped applauding. He said sternly, young people, be careful not to talk about pretentious and profound opinions. Teacher Qin, students like this need to be disciplined. Before he could finish speaking, Vice President Tan walked away with a cold face, and Principal Fang and others quickly followed suit. Ding ling ling, the class bell rang, and Qin Bing walked out of the classroom with his long legs. Woo-ho! The little cow is standing upside down, old Su. Su Shu was surrounded by people, and the classroom was also crowded with people watching the excitement. There was too much noise in class 6 of this class. Soon, the legend of Su Shuxing pouncing on Teacher Qin swept across the campus like a storm. With a bang, Qiao Daming kicked the chair away and rushed forward. Zhang Xing rubbed himself up and stopped Su Shu. Those surnamed Qiao don't feel uncomfortable riding horses. Qiao Daming didn't even look at Zhang Xing and pointed at Su Shu, there's a kind of waiting at the school gate after school, I'll kill you. Just wait for your dog. Zhang Xing bit his back teeth fiercely. Qiao Daming finished speaking harshly and turned around to leave. Intimidated by Qiao Daming's authority, the people surrounding Su Shu quickly dispersed. Zhang Xing patted Su Shu's shoulder and said, "Take your heart to heart. Today, I'll let you know Zhang Ye's hidden strength." As he spoke, he strode out of the classroom. The class bell rang, but Zhang Xing didn't come. The bell rang after class, and the bell rang again, but Zhang Xing still didn't come. Su Shu was confused and turned to ask around. Chao Feng in the front row said, "Zhang Xing has a stomachache and has taken leave." Su Shu was stunned. The school bell rang, and Chao Daming got up first. He arrogantly hooked his fingers at Su Shu and walked out. Chao Feng whispered, "Old Su, go over the wall. Chao Daming, this beast, can do anything. Last time, he stripped off the clothes of a second-grade boy right at the school gate, and in the end, he fell for the crime of being criticized. Su Shumulan, let's get back to life and be bullied by the thugs behind the water curtain. Can we still make a little brat surrender?" Jinkai High School, Chen Chang's office. The wall clock pointed towards 5.30, and around 5.20, the teachers had already left the class one by one. Qin Bing will wait until 5.40 as usual before leaving, if the phone on the table doesn't ring. The pointer points to 5.35, jingling the bell. Qin Bing quickly picked up the phone, and a thick baritone came in. "Tomorrow morning, I'll go to Xiahe Village." Xiahe Village bought a pair of boys and girls from Renyatsi to worship the River Dragon King. Qin Bing was startled and said, "Life's sacrifice. What do security officers do to eat? It's not up to us to handle this. There is indeed something in the water." The two security officers who went to investigate the situation, one was dragged down and the other was scared crazy. "Understood." Just finished the call. With a creak, the door opened and a delicate figure burst in. It was Qin Bing's best friend, piano teacher Su Ning. Su Ning stretched lazily and sat on the makeshift marching bed across from her desk with her plump buttocks raised. "It's better for you to have the same treatment as drinking foreign ink. A single-person office with a dedicated phone, envy me," she said. "However, what I envy the most is still your romantic encounter today. How do you feel, my rumored female lead? Damn it, what nonsense." Qin Bing knew about today's embarrassing incident and it must have spread throughout the school. Su Ning stood up, hugged her shoulder, lightly patted her buttocks, and leaned over her shoulder. "To be honest, how do you feel? Are you secretly enjoying your irresistible charm?" Qin Bing pushed her away and said, "The dead girl is getting more and more out of tune. It's boring to pretend again. What am I pretending to be? A little brat, dirty, what kind of romantic encounter? I'm not familiar with the goods anymore. That kid Su Shu is wearing rough clothes and covering up the national color. You still have national charm, as if you are very familiar with that kid. Don't forget that it's my piano class for class 6 now. On the first day of class, that kid shocked me." Qin Bing smiled and said, "How did it shake?" "Ah, dead girl, with white lotus flowers on the surface and coal slag in the dark, polluting and killing me." Su Ning smiled and said. Qin Bingxing's eyes flickered and he said, "Who asked you to say half a word? However, that kid can play the piano, so it's not a big deal, is it?" "What's playing the piano? You didn't see that kid's pair that looks like they were drawn, fair and slender, with smooth finger lines, rounded fingertips, and shiny armor like jade, tsk. Be careful of drooling, don't drip on my bed. A dead duck's mouth is hard, and in the future you will know the beauty. It's getting crazier and crazier." Qin Bing couldn't help feeling embarrassed and quickly changed the topic. "Anyway, for this incident today, I must call his parents. His parents may not be able to come." "What's going on?" Su Shu's father was a retired officer of the Imperial Guard. A few years ago, his old injury recurred and he passed away. "My mother left earlier, only an older sister who has been married for many years." Qin Bing was stunned. Did he really dream about his mother? "Alright, it's getting late. I have an appointment today, so I won't trouble you to accompany me. Su Ning once took a movie ticket and said, "This is the newly released blockbuster film Spring Dream of Langxiao. It's the first audio movie in China and tickets are hard to get. Zhang Xiaojie got it and also gave me a few tickets. For the sake of these tickets, I can only help him this time." After finishing speaking, she turned around and walked away gracefully. "You would actually sell me." Qin Bing shook his fist. Not long after, Su Ning's voice came from the corridor, changing its previous charm and becoming unusually cold. "Thank you all for your support. Seeing those familiar IDs, I am truly moved. Thank you." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Sleeping Trough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Sleeping Trough. Qin Bing rushed outside the door, and Su Ning was reprimanding Su Shu, speaking with righteousness and dignity, exuding a sense of professional ethics. "Have you finished your homework lately? Raise your hands. Are you? Check your homework and just do it." In the memory fragments absorbed by Su Shu, there is no Su Ning. He didn't know what intersection his predecessor Su Shu had with this person, so he was afraid of revealing the truth and had to follow suit. "Follow me, let me see your fingering." Su Ning extended her white and tender jade hand, and her 10 fingers moved as if playing the piano in the void. Su Shu secretly called himself unlucky and could only learn from him. "No, it should be like this." Su Ning stroked Su Shu's hand and said, "Come, follow me." "Okay, great. My goodness, this girl is crazy." Qin Bing quickly stepped forward and said, "Teacher Su, aren't you in an urgent matter?" Su Ning took a step aside and stood side by side with Qin Bing. She quietly pinched her waist and stared at Su Shudao. "You have a lot of technical problems. Let's find another day and the teacher will teach you separately." After Su Ning's fragrant breeze blew away, Qin Bing brought Su Shu into the office. "What can I do for you?" Feng Long's buttocks were just touching the joint office chair, and Qin Bing's gaze drifted around Su Shu's body, focusing on his hands. Sure enough, the 10 fingers are slender, with a color like scallions and a shape like bamboo, exceptionally handsome. Su Shudao said, "Teacher Qin, I was playing ball this morning and got hit on the head by the ball. I accidentally fell asleep and got a nightmare, which led to such a reckless and impolite behavior. This is my reflection letter." Qin Bing took the self-criticism letter and flipped through it, at least 3,000 words long. "Since it was a misunderstanding, just unravel it." "All right, you go home quickly," he said after learning about Su Shu's background. She was moved by compassion. Su Shu stood still. "Is there anything else?" "Chao Daming brought a group of people to block me at the gate." Qin Bingshuang was stunned and said, "What are you telling me about this? You are the teacher. What's wrong with the teacher? I'm not your homeroom teacher. Besides, haven't you ever been ashamed to sue the teacher?" Qin Bing is accustomed to conflicts among students, so he is too lazy to get involved. Su Shu frowned and said, "I've suffered a lot. It's inevitable to replace the impulse component." Qin Bing couldn't help but laugh when he remembered the ship of Texius. She deliberately asked Su Shu which book he read it from, but also worried about being timid and letting Su Shu underestimate it. "You should go find Teacher Wang, he is the homeroom teacher of Class 6. Su Shu looked desolate and said, "There aren't many responsible teachers in school. Besides you, I can't think of anyone else who is responsible and kind-hearted." Qin Bing knocked on the table and said, "Your mouth is full of rhyme. Don't think I don't know your plan and want to use me as a shield." Su Shu secretly complained, when students encounter difficulties, they should seek guidance from their teachers. "You speak eloquently." Qin Bing stared at Su Shudao and said, "Tell me, what else have you prepared as a backup?" She believed that Su Shu would not give up easily. After all, he was a guy who could speak of the ship of Theseus, and she had raised her expectations for him. Su Shu smiled apologetically and said, "To be honest, I have thought about pretending to faint in front of you, or taking the opportunity to fall and cheat, so that I can follow you out of school." Qin Bing sneered, "You must be honest. Since we've all figured it out, why don't we do it?" Su Shu whispered, "Firstly, you have a kind heart, and I cannot bear to deceive you. Secondly, you are sharp, careful, and discerning, and I dare not deceive you. The third is that you are intelligent and wise. Even my little trick cannot deceive you." Qin Bing was stunned and said for a long time, "My mom, that's too much to say." However, it seems like everything she said is true. "Well, for the sake of your honesty, I'll help you this time, but only this time." Qin Bing stood up and walked towards the outside of the office. The campus in early spring is serene and beautiful. The sun is setting in the west, the evening breeze is gentle, and the ripples on the emerald lake are sparkling. Qin Bing pushed a women's manganese steel bicycle ahead, while Su Shu fell half a body behind. The ground was covered with golden leaves, and the evening breeze blew, stirring up waves of gold. Qin Bing wanted to know if Su Shuning's mention of the ship of Theseus was accidental, so he picked a philosophical topic for casual discussion. I didn't expect Su Shu to easily take up the topic and come up with a unique idea. Qin Bing hadn't met a friend who could talk about philosophy for a long time. Walking through the woods and chatting, he forgot the purpose of his trip. Actually, this question is similar to the paradox of flying arrows don't move, which is called flying arrows don't move. As Su Shujing spoke, Qin Bing suddenly pushed the car into his arms and said, "Get in the car, hurry." Su Shu was stunned, and Qin Bing had jumped onto the back seat, urging him to ride quickly. Su Shu's two long legs kicked hard, and the manganese steel bicycle moved forward rapidly. "Bing, this way, it's me, Xiaojie." Zhang Xiaojie, who had a handsome appearance, wore this windbreaker and held a bouquet of bright red roses, shouting and waving at the pavilion across the lake. "Hurry up and let him catch up, I don't care about you." Su Shu became anxious and suddenly exerted force, causing his bicycle to race wildly. 1 minute later, the bicycle got onto the Qinhuai Road, and 100 meters ahead was the school gate. I thought this kid was shrinking up, but I didn't expect him to really dare to come. Qiao Daming saw Su Shu from a distance and sneered, "I found a bicycle. If this kid wants to rush over, he should step on his horse and guard it for me. Later, he should step on his horse and not leave anything behind. If anything happens, I will take responsibility. Don't worry, brother Qiao. If he doesn't come, he must lie down and go back naked." The disrespectful Qin teacher surnamed Su clearly threw a bomb into the school restroom, sparking public outrage. Qiao Daming and 7 or 8 young men guarded both sides of the gate, each holding a paper stick made from a large amount of old newspapers. This type of paper stick has no lower density and hardness than wooden sticks, as it is a paper stick that perfectly avoids taboos and is a popular school fighting weapon nowadays. The school peak has passed, but there are still some people gathered at the school gate, waiting to watch the excitement. When Qiao Daming saw Su Shu, Su Shu also saw him. To Qiao Daming's surprise, Su Shu's speed not only did not increase, but also slowed down. Qin Bing's mind was entirely focused on worrying about Zhang Xiaojie in the car seat, completely forgetting the purpose of this trip and the fact that Qiao Daming was blocking the school gate. He was completely unaware of how inappropriate it was for a teacher to sit on the back seat of a student's bicycle and show off. "Su Shu, how dare you come and find me, kid?" "Ah!" Qiao Daming rushed forward first and only then saw Qin Bing, as if he had been immobilized, his face instantly turning blue and purple. Until the bicycle brushed past him and went far away, Qiao Daming finally came back to life. He slapped himself a few times, rubbed his eyes hard, and then focused on looking ahead. I saw the beautiful and intellectual teacher Qin's cheeks blushing at the moment, sitting in the back seat, her beautiful eyes staring at Su Shu's back, as if she was affectionate. Qiao Daming felt a sharp pain in his chest, only feeling a whirling sensation. Bang, bang, the paper stick and I fell all over the ground. Before school, the news of Class 36 had already spread throughout the campus. Although the students of Class 36 are determined, many still do not believe it. At this moment, in front of everyone's eyes, the goddess teacher Qin was grandly carried out of the school gate by Su Shu. At this moment, countless young men suddenly woke up from their spring dreams, and the hearts of many young men were crushed. Chao Daming, dare to touch Su Shu, I'll step on my horse and kill him. Zhang Xing rushed forward, followed by a group of tall young people. In the cold weather, these people only wore elastic vests with the print of the Panlong Martial Arts School, revealing their sturdy bodies. Su Shu was facing Zhang Xing, quickly slowing down and about to break. There was a sharp pain in his back, and a sound of flies came from behind. The speed rose again and brushed past Zhang Xing. Zhang Xingjing was puzzled, and in the next moment, he could see Qin Bing sitting in the back seat clearly. Sleeping slot. Zhang Xing feels that at least half of the lying trough indicators in this life have been consumed at this time. He missed his last class and went to find someone to help him with his boxing, spending half a month on living expenses. Unexpectedly, before this punch could help, I was first hit hard by Su Shu, and suddenly my mind was buzzing with excitement. Look at what you've done. 200 meters away from the gate, Qin Bing blushed and said in a cold voice. The absurdity in the afternoon class was already enough to stir up rumors. Today, I took a car tour at the school gate, and tomorrow the school's public opinion will have to stir up. I am at your command. Su Shu felt that Chao Daming couldn't catch up anyway. Why don't I get off now? Dare. Qin Bing, can't he just hammer this kid to death and want to get out of it after finishing? What should we do then? The adverse effects must be eliminated. How to eliminate it? Think of a solution. After a moment of silence, Su Shu said, for the sake of today's plan, we can only set up a relationship with you, or are you my aunt? Auntie. Qin Bing's voice suddenly rose. If it's not possible, then it's my cousin. Otherwise, my cousin will do it too. No big or small, who are you with? Just my cousin. Do you think I should get off now? Since we have set up relatives, we can do the whole set of acting to save time for leakage. My house is located on Chongqing East Road, not far away. Go to the entrance and ask for a door. Coincidentally, my home is on Chongqing West Road. When the setting sun grazed Gezi Mountain, Su Shu took Qin Bing to Chongqing East Road, and his bike stopped at the gray wall behind a dry wood home. Su Shu just got off the car, and a loud roar came. A green tricycle turned from a street corner 200 meters away, and from a distance, black smoke could be seen coming from the exhaust pipe. The engine was roaring, and the speed plummeted. Bien Sanluan persisted until he came to a close stop, and a burly man got off the car, hating to kick the sidearm. Damn it, when it comes to the critical moment, the chain falls off, and the station is the same. Use all these useless things that the town army doesn't want to deceive people, he said. The burly knight had a beard all over his face, and Su Shu could only judge his age from the crow's feet at the corners of his eyes, which should be around 345. So late, what's up? Qin Bing exclaimed in surprise. Urgent matters, but this guy is lying down and wants to miss out on big things. My beard kicked again. Qin Bing frowned and said, riding a bicycle. Xiao Wu is 10 miles away. When the bike passes, even the yellow cauliflower is cold. The beard shook its head and sighed. Is it convenient for Fong to let me take a look? Su Shu became interested in this iron guy. In his past life, he was an antique-level existence, and he didn't have a chance to manipulate it. Do you understand this thing? My beard is a bit skeptical. Nowadays, diesel locomotives are rare and expensive. Su Shu's attire is not like that of a wealthy family. Don't dismantle it. Qin Bing doesn't want him to cause trouble again. How bad can it be? Give it a try. Duan Kuai could only be a lifeless horse doctor, took off the car toolbox, and handed it to Su Shu. Su Shu first looked around the motorcycle, which had a similar structure to previous motorcycles, but was too rough and simple. He removed a few screws, pounded for about 10 minutes, and let his beard ignite again. The sound of the engine became much clearer, my beard increased the throttle, the exhaust emissions surged, and the power also increased. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The sword is not properly matched, leaving the world is already a world of martial arts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The sword is not properly matched, leaving the world is already a world of martial arts. You really have two talents, kid. Duan Qinhuai threw a Plum Blossom brand cigarette to Su Shu, who picked it up and placed it in his ear. What exactly is the problem? Too little lubricating oil leads to an increase in piston ring resistance. The fuel quality is also poor, and the carburetor is mostly blocked. The guy who didn't take advantage of it just barely cleared it and can drive it temporarily. However, I can't guarantee how far it can be driven. Xiao Qin, what do you call this little brother? My name is Su Shu and I am a student of teacher Qin. My name is Duan Qinhuai, and you can call me Duan Gu. Old Duan is fine. Xiao Shu, let me discuss with you. I have an important matter to attend to with your teacher Qin. But this iron guy is too worried. Could you please follow us for a while? How about that? Qin Bing stared at Duan Qinhuai with his eyelids. Duan Qinhuai nodded slightly, reassuring her. No problem, but if I'm late for school tomorrow, you'll have to ask teacher Qin to help me take leave. That's a good relationship. Stubborn, with 3 wheels emitting thick smoke, rushed out of Chongqing East Road. Half an hour later, turn on to Yanjiang Avenue. Qin Bingba sat alone with a sidearm, while Su Shu squeezed behind Duan Qinhuai, gazing at the scenery. For him, the scenery, characters, and everything along the way were new. On the west side of Yanjiang Avenue, the Songmin River is vast and mighty. If it flows eastward for another 50 miles, it will merge into the sea. On the river, more than 10 steamships are slowly sailing toward Songmin Port, with the sound of steam whistles and the sound of the people's horns, creating a moving melody. When Bian Sanluan was about to drive out of Yanjiang Avenue, a black Gongyang T-shaped car drove across from Su Shu. Rare, Su Shu has an impression of this thing. He remembers that this ram cart was only put into production in Chuncheon last year, and as soon as it was released, it became the absolute darling of the city. Former Su Shu has a deep memory, but current Su Shu lacks interest in this thing. After a glance, he no longer pays attention. After 3 rounds of rapid driving, he finally arrived at Xiahe village at the top of the willow branches on the moon. Under the bright moon, the broad waves of Qinhuai River are not thriving, with towering mountains and rocks on the right bank of the river and hundreds of houses scattered on the left bank. Reluctantly holding on to a small hill, the sound of the engine seemed to be about to run out of gas. The 3 of them got off the car and didn't need to be greeted by Duan Qinhuai. Su Shu took the initiative to take out the toolbox and began maintenance. Not long after, 2 figures rushed from the foothills, both wearing the green uniforms of security officers. Duan Qinhuai and Qin Bing simultaneously took out an iron plaque with a safety pin from their pockets and wore it on their chest. The style and appearance of that iron plaque are no different from Vice President Tan's one. Just Duan Qinhuai's iron plaque has 2 vertical lines, while Vice President Tan only has 1. And Qin Bing's iron plate is also a vertical line. Hello, sir. The middle-aged police officer with a flat head salutes with a flat chest, lifting his right hand horizontally across his chest. He hangs a lead badge on his chest, standing vertically on both sides. A short sheriff performs military and police salutes, which are no different from previous life salutes, with no badge on his chest. After the ceremony, both parties will introduce each other. Ping Tu public security officer is the head of the local security room, named Chao Jiang. The short one is a talented public security officer named Chen Chang. Introduced the situation. Qinhuai took the cigarette handed by Chen Chang. Chen Chang continued to smoke Su Shu, saying, "The appearance of the river dragon king in the Pu River was 5 years ago. At first, the villages along the coast only lost some livestock, thinking it was done by the beasts on the mountain. It wasn't until an old cow drinking by the river was dragged into the river in front of everyone that it caused a sensation in the entire Xia village. Later, the village organized sacrificial ceremonies, but it was of no use. Not only did they continue to lose livestock, but they also began to see missing people. It wasn't until 3 years ago that Xia village built a Dragon King temple on the opposite bank of the river that Xia village was once again peaceful. A week ago, the security room arrested a gang of people, and one person confessed that 3 days ago, they sold a pair of 5-year-old dragon and phoenix twins to Xia village. We sent someone to negotiate with the village chief Yang Shengua in Xia village, but Yang Shengua refused to admit it. Thanks to Xiaojing's cleverness, he found the abducted child in a rural household through clues. When Xiaojing led 3 security guards to rescue him, he was surrounded by Yang Shengua and his troops. I led the crowd to support, and Yang Shengua resisted fiercely. All the villagers rose up and attacked. In order to avoid triggering a rebellion, we had to retreat. Later, through visits, it was learned that every year in Xia village, people would buy boys and girls from Renyatsi and throw them into the Qinhuai River to offer sacrifices to the river dragon king, bastard. Qin Bing's pretty face turned pale. Qinhuai smoked heavily and said, "I heard that a security officer was dragged down the river." Qiao Zhang's face darkened as he said, "After retreating, I sent a legal education team to the village to promote." Xiao Zhao, who participated in legal education, didn't believe in any river dragon king and insisted on breaking the superstition of the villagers. He personally demonstrated and jumped into the river. A huge wave surged in, leaving no trace of Xiao Zhao. Now, the villagers don't believe us anymore and insist on offering sacrifices to boys and girls. The time is set for these 2 days. Qinhuai stepped on his cigarette butt and said, "What are your thoughts?" Qiao Zhang's eyes became sharp as he said, "This is the end of the matter. The road to persuasion is definitely impassable, and we can only use coercive means. Xia village is a large village with over 500 households and over 1,000 young people. Everyone has a deep reverence for the river dragon king, and relying on local security forces will definitely not solve it. Perhaps the only solution is to mobilize the town army." Qinhuai shook his head and said, "Even if we deploy the town army, there will inevitably be bloodshed and conflict. Even if we rescue the abducted children, we cannot solve the fundamental problem without solving the things in the river. That's the truth. Qiao Jiang is very worried. Xiao Qin, what's your opinion?" Qin Bing was still grieving for the sacrificed boys and girls, shaking his head without saying a word. "Director Qiao, can I ask a few questions?" Su Shu closed his toolbox and stood up. "What are you mixing in blindly?" Qin Bing glared at him. "Who is this?" Qiao Jiang looked at Su Shu curiously but did not find his chest badge. Qinhuai said, "He is the logistics support officer for this operation, Xiao Su. Feel free to ask any questions, Xiao Su." Su Shudao said, "Director Qiao, has anyone ever seen the true appearance of that thing in the river? This is unknown. Perhaps some people in Xia village have seen it, but they all keep it a secret. You said there used to be sacrifices, but after the sacrifice, that thing really didn't blame Xia village again." "That's true, otherwise the people of Xia village wouldn't consider the sacrifice more important than the sky." "Does that thing have the ability to move ashore?" "Yes, after the last time I led a group to take action, the next day, 3 houses collapsed and 2 people died." "Strange. Where is the monster?" "Imagine, that thing is purely for eating people. With its ability, it is necessary to rely on sacrifice. Just go ashore and catch people. Perhaps it doesn't eat short-term food, but rather long-term food and relies on predation, which will only keep villagers away from this place and demand sacrifices for a longer period of time. Unreasonable. With its food intake, sacrificing one pair a year is not enough to fill its teeth. Besides, it doesn't need to consider the long run. The Qinhuai River stretches for 600 miles, and the surrounding villages are not just a few hundred. Qinhuai nodded and said, Xiao Su's words make sense. What is the significance of offering sacrifices? Su Shudao said, this should be asked to the first person who came up with the idea of sacrificing. I always feel that the thing being sacrificed is not for meat. Chao Jiang patted his thigh repeatedly and said, Brother Su's analysis is reasonable. That thing collapsed the house, crushed a person, and didn't touch the body. Would it be convenient for Fong to take us to the site of the collapse? Su Shu quickly entered the character. The burden he carried in his past life was too heavy. Apart from studying hard, he also studied hard. The first time he participated in such a thrilling and exciting action made his blood boil. Chao Jiang said, you have to ask Xiao Jing. He has a more detailed understanding of the situation over there. Jing Qing said, the collapse site is only 30 or 40 meters away from the Qinhuai River. Due to the destruction of the house, people died, and the neighboring families were also scared to move away. As long as you are careful not to disturb the villagers, there should be no problem. Qinhuai took out cookies and cans, and after a few people made simple supplements, he probed towards the collapsed house. The moon hung high, and the wind and waves on the Qinhuai River were calm. The group sneaked quietly and arrived at the collapsed house site half an hour later. After some investigation, Qinhuai said in a deep voice, there is no doubt that these 3 houses were destroyed by a huge force, which shows that they have the power to surpass bears and tigers. Chao Jiang said, it should have a huge body, with traces like stone rollers rolling out from the fields. If it were a water python, but even recorded water pythons cannot have such a terrifying size, is it the legendary water dragon? Qin Bing's eyebrows furrowed tightly. Everyone felt a chill in their spine. Su Shudao said, it's not a dragon, it's almost there. At least it has intelligence similar to that of humans. Everyone, upon careful consideration, this thing is purely for food. Is it more suitable for eating cows and sheep than for humans? In terms of his size, eating cows and sheep is better than eating humans, but he prefers sacrificial boys and girls. Moreover, sacrificing only once a year for boys and girls is satisfying, as if adhering to certain taboos. The most interesting thing is that its requirements can be accurately understood by the villagers or village heads here. So how did it communicate its requirements to Xiahe village? Besides, since Director Chao and his team last came, the house has started to collapse here. Obviously, this is a warning from that thing to the villagers of Xiahe village, demanding that Xiahe village prevent official intervention. All of the above indicates that it has excellent thinking ability upon making this judgment. Su Shu not only was not afraid, but also had a surge of heart and blood, as if pushing open the door to a new world. Isn't this a demon? Jingqing couldn't help but tremble. What is the cement land over there used for? Su Shu pointed to a cement ground by the river and asked. Chao Jiang said, that's the sacrificial altar. The boys and girls are locked in cages and sink into the water from there. Locked in a cage. Where is the Dragon King Temple and how far is it from here? Su Shuxin said in a telegram. Chao Jiang pointed to the dark ridge across the river and said, it's between the 2 cliffs over there, about a mile away from the altar. Su Shudao said, have your people visited the Dragon King Temple? I have seen it. Dare to cross the river. Nature dares not, it takes a long detour. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Jazz's Coffin Board. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Jazz's Coffin Board. Chao Jiang said, after the incident, I sent Xiao Jing and a few others to take a long detour to the opposite bank, climbed to the mountain wall next to the Dragon King Temple, and peeked down. Xiao Jing, could you tell me about the situation at that time? Jingqing said, at that time, when we climbed up the cliff, we were afraid that the thing would be hidden under the cliff, and we didn't dare to go down to the temple. We only hid at a high place to look around. The Dragon King Temple was built on a half-acre large bluestone between the two cliffs, covered in damp moss. Through the roof's skylight, the figure of that thing was not seen. Ow! Suddenly, there was a loud roar from the river, as if it were an elephant roar. Immediately after, a 1-meter-high water wall rose up in the middle of the river, rushing towards it like an arrow. Not good, I was discovered by that demon. Qiao Zhang's legs trembled. Duanquahai did not retreat but instead advanced, rushing up to the altar and staring coldly at the water wall. Unexpectedly, the water wall suddenly turned its head and disappeared in an instant. So fast. Su Shu's eyes lit up. It's those green dogs again. Fight with them, don't let us live, don't let anyone live. Countless torches gathered at the village entrance and quickly swam towards this direction. Not good, sir. You guys should withdraw first, and I'll be with the rear of Xiaojing Hall. Qiao Jiang urgently urged and had taken out the matching gun in his hand. Duanquahai shouted in a low voice, Xiao Qin, take Xiao Su with you first. Su Shu was about to withdraw when Qin Bing took off his backpack and opened it. At this moment, there was also a large army of torches swimming towards the hillside behind us, surrounded in front and back. Where could we still walk? The night wind is fierce and howling, with hundreds of torches illuminating the night sky like daylight. A 50-year-old man with a Chinese character walked out of the crowd, and it was Yang Shenhua, the village chief of Xiahe village. Lao Yang, what are you doing? Violent resistance to the law, do you know the consequences? Qiao Jiang shouted sternly. With a thud, Yang Shenhua knelt down and said, Chief Qiao, I have spoken all the good and bad things. Please show mercy. Qiao Jiang was caught off guard by Yang Shenhua's new tricks and helped him up, saying, Old Yang, living people and sacrificing themselves are violating national laws. Am I going to make things difficult for you? Yang Shenhua stood up, his eyes becoming fierce. Chief Qiao, no one can live anymore, and no one is afraid of anything. All I know is that if we don't let thousands of people in Xiahe village survive, we will fight to the death. Fight to the death. Thousands of young men roar like clouds, and torches dance wildly like demons. Bang, 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 Qiao Jiang fired his gun as a warning, and the sparse sound of gunfire could not suppress the roar of thousands of people. Thousands of villagers surged with blood, and the encirclement gradually shrank. Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, a clear and beautiful figure crossed over Su Shu and headed forward. Under the secluded moonlight, her Taoist robe fluttered, brushing the dust like snow, graceful and graceful, as if a jade true was on earth. But when she lightly raised her bare hands, 2 yellow talismans sprayed out, swirling around her body. She gently brushed the dust, and a cyclone emerged. The dust and decaying grass beneath her feet shook open one after another, and the torches around her were blown out clearly. She also heard her sing aloud, ornamental column has a crane returning for 1,000 years, and coagulates pills to cover the snow. After hearing all the words of the stars, people turn their wings to the clouds. Where have the villagers in the countryside seen such immortal jade figures? Someone immediately knelt down and kowtowed, worshipping the gods. Yang Shenhua was dumbfounded. Originally, no matter what Qiao Jiang said, he would reject it. But the appearance of this female fairy really challenged his cognitive limit, and he didn't know what to do for a moment. Director Qiao, I've already said everything. You can handle it as you please. Abandoning this sentence, Yang Shenhua led hundreds of villagers to evacuate. Are you, Commander Qin? Looking at the immortal jade figure, Jingqing stuttered and asked. It's me. The fairy smiled slightly. Qing Chang's thin face turned red and his eyes were full of admiration. If it weren't for Officer Qin, it wouldn't have ended today. Qiao Jiang looked relieved. Xiao Su, what do you think? Duan Kuai looked at Su Shu. Xiao Su looked foolish long ago. Duan Kuai patted Su Shu's shoulder and smiled, it's just a trick. I'll see how scared you are. Su Shu has a spectrum in his heart, and he can still distinguish between magic and magic. He remained calm and said, just now that thing was chirping, obviously notifying the river. Our arrival will definitely cause unease in that thing, and he will definitely take advantage of the villagers' momentum in the village to drive us away. Duan Kuai nodded and said, I see it the same way. Chief Chao, you go back first. Tomorrow morning, bring all the strength of the security department and gather here. Qiao Jiang was ordered to leave. Duan Kuai, Qin Bing, and Su Shu returned to the small post where the motorcycle was parked. The three of them found a place to stand against the wind, set up a campfire, and shared cookies to satisfy their hunger. After finishing, Qin Bing wrapped himself in a blanket and slept by the campfire. The moon was in the sky, and the river wind was cold. Su Shu hugged his legs and heated the fire, unable to help but say, Brother Duan, which department are you and Teacher Qin from? Duan Kuai smiled and said, knowing too much is not good for you. Today's event is just a wonderful experience for you. Once it's over, forget it quickly and go to sleep. Speaking, Duan Kuai threw the last blanket to Su Shu, added firewood to the campfire, and slept on the ground. Su Shu encountered a nail, but became even more curious. After all, he had been tinkering all day. Thinking about it, he also fell into a deep sleep. Get lost. Qin Bing turned over and sat up, his starry eyes red. Su Shu and Duan Kuai flipped over and sat up. The sky is already bright, the lead clouds are hanging low, the mournful wind is howling, and the waves are surging. But is a demon dream in my arms? Duan Kuai asked. Are you too? Qin Bing exclaimed in surprise. Duan Kuai nodded and said, that wicked beast is threatening us to leave in his dream. I didn't expect him to have a dream trick. Su Shu exclaimed in surprise, it turns out that we were communicating with Xiahe village through the means of daydreaming. It must be so. Qin Bing took out the headband and tied up the ink like waterfall hair. Duan Kuai frowned and said, with great strength and exceptional intelligence, as well as the magic of daydreaming, I'm sorry. Su Shu said in a deep voice, why doesn't that demon dream to me? Look down on me. Don't think so, maybe you're different. Duan Kuai patted Su Shu's shoulder and walked towards the riverbank. 3 people took a simple wash from the river water, and Qiao Jiang led 6 security officers, including Chen Chang, on bicycles to arrive. 3 of them were wearing firearms. Qiao Jiang brought breakfast to the 3 people. The fragrant green onion and meat bags and steaming rice porridge filled their bellies, and the cold air was exhausted overnight. Everyone was talking when suddenly they heard the firecrackers explode. At the entrance of the village, a winding procession emerged like a long snake, led by Yang Shenghua. He wore deer antlers made of yellow paper on his head and a raincoat draped over his shoulders. Behind him, a group of male villagers dressed in this attire, and both teams raised plaques on their heads, which were filled with beautiful words praising the River Dragon King. At the side of the team, a gray-haired old man wearing a tall white hat and holding a white flag in his hand sang like roaring Qin opera, the world opens, the day is good, 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 the dragon is lucky, the east is red at sunrise, and the fairy child is sacrificed to the dragon. In the 1-meter-high iron cage in the middle of the team, 2 children in red clothes sat quietly, holding a big white mantu, eating it, and looking around curiously with ignorant eyes. Damn it! Qin Bing's eye circles turn red. Get in the car. Duan Kuai roared angrily, Xiao Su, come and drive. If I don't shout to stop, just pull the gas and charge forward. Okay. Su Shu stepped onto the car and kicked the side 3 wheels with one foot. Duan Kuai bounced off and jumped into the sidecar. Excitement and excitement, I rushed out of work in 3 rounds. Keep up, keep up. Boss Su has already explained that if these 2 of us have any mistakes, we will both have to strip off their skin and go home to comfort the children. Chao Jiang took out his matching gun, pressed it against the barrel, and roared angrily. Jing Qing exclaimed in shock, is President Su from the county also alarmed? Who else could it be besides him? Several security officers were horrified and hurriedly followed. After 3 rounds of charging, the sacrificial procession stopped at a distance of 300 meters. Young Shunguo waved his hand and dozens of young men held wooden sticks as thick as their arms, leading the way in the procession. Behind them, there are hundreds of young men holding agricultural tools and standing guard. This is our private matter. Please do not interfere, sir. When the Dragon King is angry, both jade and stone will be burned. Yang Shunguo shouted loudly. No one responded to him, and without slowing down for 3 rounds, he collided with the sacrificial procession. Break! Bian Sanluan rushed 30 meters away, and Duan Kuai let out a loud shout. He leaped high from his sidecar like a big bird, gliding and rushing into the wooden stick formation. Su Shu suddenly applied a sudden brake, and an astonishing elasticity came from behind. Qin Bingyu's face was flying red, and her jade fingers leaned towards Su Shu's waist. Su Shu immediately showed his teeth and grinned. More than a dozen village men rushed forward and surrounded Bian Sanluan tightly. With a loud bang, 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 not far away, gunshots rang out, and Chao Jiang and others arrived. Regardless of what's on the car, stop the one who can fly. Yang Shunguo shouted loudly. But I saw Duan Kuai, like a big bird, stepping on the shoulders of a group of rural farmers, jumping back and forth in the crowd. Every time he stepped out, he was 2 meters away. Jazz's coffin board. Su Shu's eyebrows danced with joy. I saw Duan Kuai flying down and rushing like a dragon across the river to the iron cage, grabbing a broom and pointing east and west. He was dozens of young men and was knocked to the ground in an instant. Power, speed, and accuracy far exceed the limits of ordinary people. This is not kung fu, it is divine skill. Su Shu's blood boiled with enthusiasm. Those who don't want to die will come up. With a roar of a tiger, Duan Kuai strode forward, and the young men blocking him retreated one after another. The man in front of him, who was like a god of war, was beyond their understanding. Move aside. Yang Shunguo drinks high. The young men dispersed one after another, and the iron cage was exposed. 8 old women stood in a circle with their backs against the cage, tightly gripping the iron railing with both hands. Duan Kuai was stunned and said, "What are you doing? Your own children and grandchildren are human, but other people's children are not human. No matter how angry he is, he will never take action against these old women." A white-haired old woman knelt down and said, "Officer, there's nothing we can do. If we don't sacrifice this river dragon king, hundreds of children from Xiahe village will die. If the official wants to save people, we, who are old and immortal, can only die in front of the official. If the official is not satisfied, as long as the sacrifice is completed, we, the elderly and immortal, are willing to throw ourselves into the river and commit suicide. The official is merciful." The villagers of Xiahe village knelt down like fallen wheat. Yang Shunguo walked up and said with a sigh, "Sir, unless we are not afraid of the national law, if the national law can protect us, we will never dare to do such a thing." Duan Kuai remained silent for a long time and sighed, "I will take care of the matter of Xiahe village after handing over the sacrificial child." The security officer who came earlier also said the same, but later he sank into the water and never came again. As a result, I lost 13 livestock, destroyed 3 houses, and 2 dead people in Xiahe village. Yang Shengua pointed to the surging Qinhuai River and said, "We used to trust the officials, but they couldn't protect us. We had no choice, but now we only trust the Dragon King of this river. The chief wants to take away 2 sacrificial children. It's not impossible, the commoners only have one condition, you say it." Qinhuai never expected to end up in a dead end and have a turning point. Yang Shengua pointed to Su Shu in the distance, "Unless the postnatal driver is used to exchange for these 2 children, besides that, my village in Xiahe will burn jade and stone, and I will never give up offering sacrifices." Qinhuai was confused. Su Shu's heart pounded as he almost fell off his motorcycle. Qin Bing was also stunned. Qinhuai swallowed his saliva and said, "If you want to change it, just change me. Just replace the younger generation. Yangshan National Highway, there is still half an hour until the auspicious time. Please make a decision quickly, sir." Qinhuai let out a long sigh, separated the crowd, and walked towards the side of the 3-wheeled road. Without waiting for him to approach, Su Shu flipped over and got off the car, racing towards the road, afraid that Qinhuai would come after him. He is here to explore the mysteries, not to sacrifice his life to save the world. Running, Su Shu noticed that Qinhuai was not chasing after him. He stopped and turned his head, only to see Qinhuai standing still in place. He quickly turned his head and heard a voice in his mind, "Don't step on a horse and play with me. Other people's lives are fate, and my life is also fate. Apart from my loved ones, I haven't had the Virgin Mary to exchange lives with strangers yet. No exchange, it's not me who killed it. If someone dies, it has nothing to do with me. There are so many people suffering in the world, why should I be soft-hearted?" He walked extremely fast step by step, as if trying to escape. As he walked, the panicked and confused eyes of 2 young children kept flashing back in his mind. Finally, he couldn't move anymore, and his voice continued, No, I'm not sympathizing with anyone. I was completely trying to get in between Qinhuai and Qin Bing. I walked like this, and that opened a corner of the extraordinary world and was about to close the door to me. Yes, that's all I have. Let's put it together. It's all said, it's not pity for anyone. Damn it, fight it. He gritted his teeth, finally settled his feet, and turned his head. Boom. Boom. The engine roared, from far to near, and with a creaking stop, Qinhuai slapped Su Shu's shoulder and said, "Good kid, you're much stronger than me when I saw you in danger." Su Shu waved his hand and said, "Don't step on the horse and give me chicken soup. I don't want to be a hero, I want to live. Don't worry, even if I die, I can't let you die." Su Shu waved his hand and said, "Dui, all I can ask is, if you were on the shore, you might be able to deal with that wicked beast." He has confidence in Qinhuai's strength. Last night, Qinhuai was clambering on the shore, but the thing in the river didn't even come ashore, which shows his fear of Qinhuai. Qinhuai's eyes lit up and he said, "If I can really lure this wicked beast ashore, I can cut him alive." "Brother, what can you do?" Qin Bing also stared closely at Su Shu. "I'm still thinking of a solution." After speaking, Su Shu walked towards Yang Shengua. Qin Bing stomped his foot in anger and said, "When is it? You're still trying to play tricks." Qinhuai looked at Su Shu's back and sighed, "What a seedling. This psychological quality is stronger than me back then." Yang Shengua stopped Su Shu and said, "Later on, what do you mean? Village chief, if you want my life, won't you let me see my burial place? How could I take your life?" Yang Shengua was still waiting for a debate, but Su Shu strode towards the iron cage. Quickly, get the child out and keep an eye on it." Yang Shengua shouted loudly. Su Shu arrived at the iron cage and the 2 young children had been transferred. The entire cage is welded with steel bars the thickness of a little finger, and the quality of the welded joints is very new. At the bottom of the cage, a piece of pig iron was welded, half finger thick, about the size of a fan. Su Shu walked around the iron cage, his gaze actually fixed on the keyhole. After circling twice, he turned around and left. Yang Shenhua urgently asked, later, have you changed your mind? Let me explain the future affairs. Well. Okay, there's not much time left, please hurry up. Su Shu left, and a villager whispered, Village chief, this kid sees that the cage is fake and the lock is real. He's afraid he wants to hide tools and break through the cage. If you ask me, it would be better to sacrifice those 2 children, as there won't be any problems. I can't figure out why the Dragon King Immortal wants that kid. Yang Shenhua scolded. Can you also speculate on the immortal intentions of the Dragon King? If this young person really tries to unlock, it will only be a miscalculation. Just give him the key, even if it sinks in the water, this lock is difficult to open. Besides, when underwater, with the Dragon King present, he won't have any chance. Oh, it's a pity. Su Shu returned to Bien Sanluan and quickly took out the toolbox. He picked up 2 thin iron wires, a screwdriver, and wrapped it in his sleeve. Qin Bing was worried and said, when you're in the water, there's a lot of resistance. This thing can't open the lock. Without explanation, Su Shu called Chen Chang and said, Brother Jing, how long will it take to reach the cliff on the Dragon King Temple from here? Chen Chang said, if you can cross the river, it won't take 10 minutes. If taking a detour, it will take at least 3 hours. Su Shudao said, it's impossible to cross the river. That demon is incredibly sensitive. As long as he goes into the water, he will definitely be alarmed, only by taking a detour. Duan Kuai's eyes lit up and he said, do you mean that the wicked beast will drag its iron cage back to the Dragon King Temple? Jing Qing said, I once climbed up the cliff that the Dragon King Temple was staring at to sneak a peek. The Dragon King Temple was empty, and that evil beast was not hiding there. Su Shu said, I'm not usually here, but I must be here today. Imagine that guy wants to eat people, there's no need for him to be both a sacrifice and an iron cage. He wants the living, the boys and girls who are still alive. When dragged into the Dragon King Temple, everyone stared at Su Shu in surprise, thinking he was talking nonsense in broad daylight. Su Shu continued, last night, we went to the collapsed house site and I observed the altar. The terrain is too steep, with mud puddles everywhere. If you stand from the perspective of the villagers in Xiahe village, it is not suitable to build an altar there. It can only be said that the position of the altar was chosen by the demon. It is easy to observe that the position of the altar is the shortest distance from the riverbank to the Dragon King Temple. Obviously, the wicked beast hoped to drag the iron cage back to the Dragon King Temple in the shortest possible time. Last night, Chief Duan rushed up to the altar and startled the evil beast, who fled. That formation, that speed is comparable to a real Dragon King. At such a speed, the wicked beast will never rush back from the sacrificial altar to the Dragon King Temple in more than a minute. Moreover, that bastard may not have used full speed. Therefore, even if there is an extra iron cage, the evil beast can probably return to the Dragon King Temple in just 1 minute. Chao Jiang exclaimed in shock, if you're in the water, you won't drown for more than a minute. If you drag it back to the Dragon King Temple, you can still live. Duan Kuai slapped and said, I see. I'll explain why there is a huge iron handle on the iron cage. It turns out it's convenient for that wicked animal to bite and share. Qin Bing frowned and said, I have a question. Since that mischievous boy and girl who want to live, why not let Yang Shenhua take a boat directly to the Dragon King Temple? Why is it an iron cage and a sacrifice? To create a sense of mystery. Su Shudao said, that wicked beast needs a pair of boys and girls every year, but people's hearts are all flesh. Relying solely on Yang Shenhua as a village chief is not enough to resist the government, and not enough to quell public opinion. By using this sacrificial method, the villagers of Xiahe village can witness the existence of the River Dragon King with their own eyes. Fear and mystery are enough to solidify the will of the villagers of Xiahe village into steel. Only then can this ugly sacrifice be sustained. This kid is really impressive. Qin Bing secretly said. Qinhuai waved his hand and said, "It's not too late. Since the direction is clear, let's take action separately. Xiao Su, you will be responsible for dragging Yang Shengua down later, and the rest will be handed over to us. Don't worry, if you have any major issues, hurry up, it's already this moment. Can you say something auspicious?" Su Shu pouted. Qin Bing shook his head with a bitter smile and took out an apricot yellow talisman, handing it to Su Shu. "You keep it close to yourself, maybe you can use it," he said. "I also have something for you." I saw Su Shu take out a worn-out wallet, pick out $6 silver, several banknotes, and carefully count them one by one. A total of 6 yuan and 35 cents, everyone can see clearly. "Can you help me make a witness?" Immediately, he stuffed the money back into his wallet and handed it to Qin Bing. Qin Bing took the wallet, unable to laugh or cry. After handing over the most important property, Su Shu turned around and left, wanting to shout, "The wind is howling," his throat drying up badly. The hostage exchange went smoothly. Yang Shengua was careful enough not to hand over the two young children until Su Shu was locked in the cage and the iron cage was moved to the rear. The two police officers who took away the young child, Qinhuai, Qin Bing, Chao Jiang, Jing Cheng, and others, were nowhere to be seen. Watching the two security officers leave, Yang Shengua's heart finally returned to his chest. Suddenly, over 2,000 villagers from Xiahe village, regardless of age, knelt down at Su Shu. Yang Shengua also knelt down and said, "Later on, you are a good person. We really have no choice but to hate you. If you want to hate, you can hate your life. Don't worry, after you die, we will definitely build a temple for you to worship and offer incense for generations to come." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Theology. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Theology. Su Shuduan sat in the cage and said, "The offering of incense is exempt. There is something I need to inform you in advance. You also saw the female mage from yesterday. She is a true master of enlightenment. Just now I went to explain the aftermath, mainly to consult with her about the aftermath. The monk said, I died before noon, and I have a deep resentment. It's difficult for me to reincarnate and I will definitely transform into a fierce ghost, entangled in Xiahe village." As soon as these words were spoken, the whole room was buzzing. Having been educated by the River Dragon King in sacrificial activities for several years, the people of Xiahe village, from top to bottom, believe in the ways of gods, ghosts, and ghosts. Especially with Qin Bing's previous display of exceptional demeanor, the villagers still remember it vividly. Her words are hard for the villagers to believe. "No, we must not miss the auspicious time." Yang Shengua firmly refused. "Village chief, don't do anything absolutely. Anyway, I had to trade my life to save those two children. I died today and only want to be reincarnated. You refuse such a small request. That's all, I'll just die here, and there's no need for you to throw me into the river." Speaking, Su Shu took out the screwdriver, with its sharp tip firmly pressing against his neck. Now, not only Yang Shengua is panicking, but the villagers are all shouting. "Calm down, you must be calm. It's easy to say something, easy to say something." Yang Shengua was so anxious that he almost danced around. The two children have been released. If Su Shu really can't figure it out and dies on the shore without sacrificial offerings, then it's all over. "Okay, I promise you, I promise you." Yang Shengua was so anxious that he stamped his feet. Immediately, he led a few confidants away, discussing how to break the deadlock. There is no good way to discuss it. Now, the iron cage has become Su Shu's protective umbrella. Through the cage, if you want to suddenly take action, you can't even control Su Shu. The situation is deadlocked, unconscious, and the auspicious time has arrived. There was no sound of gunfire, and suddenly a huge vortex burst out in the middle of the river, followed by passionate elephant sounds. In the middle of the lake, the villagers of Xiahe village immediately scattered birds and animals, leaving only 20 or 30 hard-working individuals standing in place, all with fear on their faces. Yang Shenhua fought 2 battles and arrived at the altar, loudly explaining the reason why the sacrifice did not start immediately. Not only can I daydream, but I can also understand people's language. Su Shu murmured softly. After Yang Shenhua finished speaking, the anomaly in the center of the river immediately disappeared. Ladies and gentlemen, stop standing like this and sit down and chat for a while. Su Shu put down the screwdriver and greeted Yang Shenhua and others. Yang Shenhua and his team are full of worries, so there is no interest in chatting. Su Shu stopped persuading and said to himself, to be honest, I volunteered to have 2 children this time to earn some merit for myself. As the female monk said, those who worship the gods will be rewarded by the gods. I have been extremely poor and have no hope in this life, but my merits this time are enough for me to live a good life in the next life. The mage also said. Up and down in Xiahe village, he believed in ghosts and gods the most. As soon as he opened his words, Yang Shenhua and others were mesmerized and their tense nerves slowly relaxed. There is someone with poor composure, but they still started chatting along. Time passes slowly in this, 1 word from you, 1 word from me. As the young brother said, being sacrificed is a great good thing. If I were to be sacrificed, maybe in my next life I would also be a landlord, at worst I would have to be the village chief. Village chief, it's really not possible. Why don't I go and offer sacrifices to the river dragon king? A burly scarred man whispered. Yang Shenhua kicked him in the butt and said, even if you don't pee or shine, what kind of virtue do you have? You deserve to step on a horse. At this moment, the mournful sound of the river's heart came again. Yang Shenhua ran up to the altar, took out an old chain pocket watch from his arms, and shouted loudly to the river's heart, it's only half an hour away. You can't bear it anymore. The heart of the river has regained calmness. Yang Shenhua sat back by the cage, looked anxiously at Su Shu and said, younger generation, what Taoist temple does the mage belong to? You said that the 9 manual she practiced can really give birth to a son. Su Shu said with a righteous expression, I have heard the monk say, the way of heaven is to make up for what is not good and what is bad. Su Shujing was speaking, and Yang Shenhua and others all appeared dead gray with dilated pupils. Su Shu's heart thumped for a moment, and waves of chills hit from his back. He slowly turned his head and saw a python head 3 meters away, the size of a grinding wheel, with a pair of cold triangular eyes staring at him intently. Although the python tightly closed its mouth, there was still a foul smell coming from its face. The huge head obstructed his vision, and he couldn't even see his full size. This is too incredible. Despite making sufficient psychological preparations, at this moment, the terrifying monster was already in a state of panic in his heart. Roar! His mouth full of mucus opened, revealing sharp dagger-like fangs, spewing out a foul-smelling hurricane. Su Shu was blown to the wall of the cage, and the screwdriver flew out of the cage. He bit on the piece of pig iron that connected the cage, turned around, and rushed towards the river. The huge python's head was almost pressed against the iron cage, and its cold triangular eyes stared fixedly at Su Shu, as if carrying human emotions. Su Shu kept giving himself psychological hints while also observing him. It was not until he entered the river that Su Shu could see his full size. He is about 21 meters long and shaped like a bucket. He remembered that the longest recorded python in his previous life was only 15 meters long, and its body was far less robust than this one. With such a large size, combined with spiritual intelligence and magic, there is not much difference between it and a dragon. Can Duanquahai handle it? Am I dying? Gudu, the divergent thoughts were quickly dispersed by the river water invading the mouth. He quickly closed his mouth, adjusted his breathing, and tightly grasped the wall of the cage with both hands, letting him drag himself to chop the waves in the river. The erosion of the water flow made Su Shu feel pain all over his body. Immediately afterwards, there was a burning and painful sensation in the chest cavity, and the eardrums were also buzzing violently. Time seemed like a year had passed, until an illusion appeared in front of Su Shu's eyes, and the nasal cavity finally sucked in air again. He opened his mouth, greedily breathing, while also opening his eyes and looking around. This is the Dragon King Temple, it's too rudimentary. It's just a big dilapidated house built on a large bluestone. What is that? Su Shu stared at the concrete pier over half a meter high in the center of the house, only to feel that this thing appeared suddenly here. He was pondering, and with a sudden shake of his head, the iron cage flew up and hit the concrete pier, causing Su Shu to see stars in his eyes. At the same time, a pile of scrap iron was thrown away by the iron cage and fell to the ground. Su Shu fixed his gaze and saw two withered corpses mixed in the pile of scrap iron. Upon careful consideration, it was clear that there was no scrap iron and it was a flattened sacrificial cage. In an instant, Su Shu understood, what this wicked beast wants is not living people, but blood. This cement pier is just a simple altar. He suppressed his panic and looked at the altar, only to see an almost regular dark brown mark that spread from the countertop to the ground, ending in a slightly raised place. He called out strangely, even crushing people with cages, blood overflowing, it should be divergent, there could be no bloodstains according to this rule. Could it be that the thing hidden in the tomb has the ability to absorb blood that led to the creation of this rule imprint? Su Shu finally caught a glimpse of Guan Xiao, and his huge tail was raised high and ready to be smashed down. Wait! Su Shu exclaimed in surprise. He raised his huge head, suspended in mid-air, his blood-red triangular eyes filled with contempt. Brother Dao, you put in a lot of effort to make me switch to that pair of boys and girls. I know what you want. You may not know what I want, Brother Dao. Su Shu seemed calm, with 10,000 drums beating in his heart. Su Shu calculated everything, but he didn't expect this demon to personally end up dragging himself into the water. 3 hours away from what Jingqing had said, at least half an hour away, but the beast in front of him wanted his life only in a blink of an eye. Without waiting for his response, Su Shu quickly answered, "Do you know why I had to wait until noon before they would let them throw me into the river? Brother Dao, do you know why I agreed to replace those 2 children with my own body? Is there anyone in the world who is not afraid of death? Brother, do you know why you can't invade my dream? Brother Dao, the opportunity has arrived, don't miss it." A set of combos, his crimson eyes showed confusion for the first time. Suddenly, a lump on top of its head emitted a black aura that rushed towards Su Shu. The black air only hit Su Shu and quickly retreated, almost collapsing. Su Shu remembered something and took out the apricot yellow talisman gifted by Qin Bing and threw it on the ground. Black energy rushed in again, and Su Shu's mind was filled with an additional thought, who the hell are you? It chose Su Shu precisely because of his unfathomable dream-seeking secret method, which failed to work for him. Therefore, he suspected that Su Shu was a legendary spiritual body. Those who are both seeking the Tao, why bother to delve deeper into the matter, Brother Dao? Are you not from the government? Our generation aspires to participate in the cultivation of the great Tao. How can we be willing to willingly fall and become officials' hawk dogs? I only got along with them after hearing about my Taoist brother's existence. Besides, how could officials hawk dogs sacrifice themselves to save others? What exactly are you trying to say? Brother, don't worry, just listen to me speak slowly. I insist on offering sacrifices at noon, actually to force my elder brother to appear and see if he is afraid of the scorching sun at noon, in order to test his strength. Now it seems that Brother Dao's strength is not bad, which satisfies me. I am willing to replace each other with my own body, not to save others, but to have a moment with my Taoist brother. I have crossed mountains and seas, as well as mountains and seas of people, in order to search for beings like Brother Dao. As for why Brother Dao cannot invade my dream, this is my secret technique and I cannot tell Brother Dao. In short, if I don't even have this skill, I don't deserve to come and see Brother Dao to discuss this business. He couldn't figure out exactly what medicine Su Shu was selling in his gourd, but he felt that Su Shu's words were logical, which made him involuntarily desire to explore. Let me tell brother a story. Give you 1 minute. Su Shu was secretly anxious, as the procrastination method was about to fail. Brother Dao, why worry? If my story cannot satisfy Brother Dao will take my life. Besides, Qinhuai River is within reach, and Brother Dao can move in and out freely. What's there to worry about? Anyway, I'll give you time to see what tricks you're up to. 3 years ago, I visited a country where there was an iron dragon that could transport thousands of people to thousands of miles away overnight, and an iron bird that could transport hundreds of people to fly over thousands of miles of sky overnight. Su Shu described what he saw on Earth. His literary talent was good, and he listened attentively. After nearly 5 minutes of seeing and hearing about the Earth, he gradually became impatient. Su Shu quickly turned to the main topic. There is a demon monk on Jiang'a Mountain who has been practicing for many years and is stuck in a bottleneck. He must frequently steal the virgin Xian Yin in order to achieve success. For this reason, the demonic monk took risks and frequently entered the room to pick incense and steal jade. However, he was severely injured by the official eagle dog and fortunately, he was saved by me after my guidance. He transformed into a sorcerer and traveled between wealthy families, gaining great fame. Some wealthy individuals donated to build a temple on the Jiang'a Mountain. The demonic monk showed off his tricks and captured countless followers. The temple became increasingly popular, and the number of followers gradually increased. At that time, the demon monk no longer needed to steal the Xianin, and some of the fairy maidens were willing to practice joyful meditation with him. The demon monk thanked me by passing on a set of secret techniques, but Brother Dao couldn't enter my dream. That's why, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Fierce Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Fierce Battle. What does this have to do with the business you're talking about? He exhaled a white breath from his mouth, unable to resist the urge to kill Su Shu. Su Shu hurriedly said, "The path of the demon monk in the story is the business that I want to talk to my Taoist brother about." He was stunned, his raised giant tail slowly landing on the ground, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt confused. You mean to make me imitate the demon monk, but with my size, how can I get into a wealthy person's house? Su Shu Dao said, the demon monk has the path of the demon monk, and the Taoist brother has the path of the Taoist brother. Moreover, the Taoist brother walked well in the first half of the road, such as deterring the villagers of Xiahe village, or building this Dragon King temple. But the road ahead narrows, and sacrifices and intimidation cannot compare to offerings and faith. In my opinion, what Brother Dao needs to do is to demonstrate his abilities, benefit the villagers, and occasionally entrust a dream to the wealthy family. With the passage of time and word of mouth, is it still feared that the incense in the Dragon King temple will not be strong? As long as the incense is strong, expanding the Dragon King temple is as easy as a palm. After the expansion, the temple was vast, with numerous pilgrims and a wide range of silver coins. With this as the foundation, where can't we buy a few boys and girls when Brother Dao takes 1 or 2 villagers as his core? Only by operating in this way, without any hindrance from top to bottom, without informing the villagers, and without investigating the government, can we maintain it for a long time. He was dumbfounded and tossed and turned, feeling that Su Shu's method was more than 10 times superior to the sacrifice he had made. This is really a naturally bad person. No, wouldn't it be too dangerous for me to deal with such a bad person? He was worried, but he couldn't refuse Su Shu's beautiful vision and spread his thoughts. What do you want? Su Shu smiled slightly and looked far away. I once had everything, and in the blink of an eye, it drifted away like smoke. Gold and silver, wealth, fame and fortune, are like floating clouds to me. Brother Dao should understand me. He said to himself, I originally wanted to use the dream secret technique, but unfortunately, even if I wanted to pass it on, you wouldn't be able to learn it. He spread his thoughts and said, this is simple. As long as you help me succeed, I will not mistreat you. Finally, I'm limping. Su Shu's hanging heart finally let go. The top priority is to deal with the government's invasion and suppression. However, with my operation, Brother Dao has no worries. It's just that Brother Dao needs to temporarily avoid the limelight, and when the news passes, we can follow the steps. He could see that he had human wisdom, but he was not among the group of cunning. At present, he had been deceived and crippled, and Su Shu felt that there was no need to let Qinhuai fight hard. There were too many games he could set. He was about to urge him to withdraw and pounce when a large hole appeared at the top of the temple. Qinhuai leapt down from the sky and shouted loudly, "Good kid, you scared me to death. I thought you were dead. Ha, keep your heart in your heart, I'll handle the rest." I saw him wielding a long spear and shooting it into the air. He was furious and threw his huge tail, vowing to turn Su Shu into flesh. Su Shu closed his eyes and waited to die, hating his teammate Zhu extremely. Qinhuai let out a long roar, and with a sweep of his spear in his hand, he took the lead and opened the iron cage. Immediately, Qinhuai's body pressed down like a spring, and he pulled up 3 meters in place. His spear swept out of the air and hit his huge tail. He unloaded his strength and borrowed it, leaping high and onto his broad back. He twisted his body violently, but Qinhuai seemed to grow on him. No matter how hard he tried to sway, he could never get rid of it. The entire Dragon King temple was violently shaken by the impact, with broken stones flying wildly. He couldn't shake off Qinhuai and began to roll on the ground. Now, Qinhuai had to draw his spear and fly up again. Qinhuai avoided the attack and struck like lightning, piercing 5 or 6 blood holes on his massive body. He roared uncontrollably, knowing why Qinhuai couldn't do it. He glared at Su Shu with great resentment, swayed his body, and rushed towards the river. Pang Rant's body swam at lightning speed. Bang, bang, several pottery jars fell in front of the temple gate, and a large amount of black oil flowed all over the ground, spreading to the riverbank edge. Whoosh, a rocket hit the burning oil and suddenly burst into flames, blocking his path. He was naturally afraid of fire and kept retreating. Qinhuai wielded his spear to kill him, but he overcame his biological instincts and charged towards the sea of fire. Pup, pup, the spear drilled several blood holes in the python's body, but it still dragged its burning body and rushed into the Qinhuai River, causing towering waves. Qinhuai was so anxious that he jumped over the sea of fire and threw himself into the water. He didn't escape, lifted his huge head and glared angrily at Qinhuai, as if waiting for him to fight. "Duan team, no way." Su Shu exclaimed, "This wicked beast has a huge body. It seems to move quickly on the ground, but it is not his full strength. In the water, he can rely on buoyancy, and he is 10 times more agile than on the shore." Qinhuai stood beside the raging fire, filled with indignation. At this moment, he opened his mouth and let out a stuttering voice, "I want you all. Come down. Suffer death. If you don't come down, I'll slaughter everything. Go down the river. Village. Are you so angry that you're starting to speak human language?" Qinhuai was greatly shocked. Su Shudao said, "The silent organs of snakes are the sound waves simulated by the vibration of air waves and water waves. There are quite a few of them. Still talking, Duan team, we need to notify Xiahe village for emergency evacuation." A rope hung down from a hole in the roof, and Qin Bing slid down with the rope. "Don't come. I'll go. People die. The village is destroyed." He rolled his body and raised a water wall on the river surface. Su Shulang said in a voice, "Brother Duan, I know there is a treasure hidden in this temple." As he spoke, he skillfully poked open the iron lock and got out of the cage. As soon as these words were spoken, the water wall rolled back and he rushed out of the river, frantically rushing towards the direction of the temple gate. Su Shu said in a high voice, "Brother Duan, under the cement pier, there's a dark brown grave. Help me break it open. There's a treasure inside, don't hurt it." Duan Quahai's spear, like a poisonous dragon, protruded from his palm and kissed the ground, causing the blue stones from the grave to crack in response. With a crash, he rolled out a large amount of river water and forcefully dispersed the sea of fire. With a loud bang, he swam ashore and rushed towards him. Su Shu rushed to the ground where it exploded, reached out and pulled out a dark-colored pure golden leaf. He suddenly flipped over and carried Qin Bing over the cement altar. With a loud bang, the huge tail hit the cement platform, and the thick altar collapsed in an instant. Die. Duan Quahai, who had been lucky for a long time, stopped drinking with a single sound, his spear shot rapidly, and a long sound echoed in the air, like a white rainbow piercing through the sun, hitting his head. With a loud bang, the spear pierced the head and pierced the ground. He struggled fiercely, his bloody white brain streaming out, and a few seconds later, Panran's body stopped struggling. "Ha, it's finally over." Su Shukai stood up and was pulled behind by Qin Bing. In the next moment, a bright red flesh lump the size of a palm on his head burst open, and a black aura surged out, directly attacking Su Shu. Indeed, it's sending beasts to complain about spirits. Qin Qing let out a cold shout, waved her bare hand lightly, and threw out 2 apricot yellow talismans. The black energy immediately rolled back, and the apricot yellow talismans chased closely, one on the left and the other on the right. After several breaths of stalemate, 2 apricot yellow talismans finally trapped black energy, squeezing one left and the other right tightly. That black aura unexpectedly took on a humanoid form, a middle-aged man with thin eye sockets. He struggled with a twisted face, opened his mouth to curse angrily, but couldn't make a sound. However, the apricot yellow talismans gradually closed, and the last 2 talismans tightly pressed together. With a bang, the black energy burst out and the room was filled with wind. Subsequently, some faint light spots drifted away with the wind. In the next moment, Su Shu noticed that many dots of light slowly appeared on the green ring. Duan Quahai and Qin Bing were completely unaware. Su Shu was stunned. What surprised him was not that the green ring had changed, but that there were really ghosts in this world. "Golden leaf, quickly throw it away, quickly." Qin Bing drank urgently and was the first to notice that the golden leaf in Su Shu's hand was not right. Su Shu quickly threw the golden leaf, but it didn't land and floated in mid-air. The exquisite leaf surface slowly revealed tiny cracks, and black smoke rose in waves, transforming into the image of a middle-aged man, roaring with unwillingness. No need for Qin Bing to cast spells, the black smoke dissipates with the wind. What's going on here? Originally, this evil spirit irrigates this golden leaf with the blood of boys and girls every year to send spirits. Duan Dui, do you know the origin of this golden leaf? Duan Quahai shook his head. With a click, the golden leaf shattered into countless particles. At this moment, Su Shu only felt that the green ring was hot, and countless particles rushed towards him. He didn't have time to dodge at all, so he was pounced on and the particles quickly penetrated his skin. Su Shu felt thousands of ants crawling into his body, causing him to fall to the ground in pain and keep rolling. Is it too strange for the spiritual source to enter the body? Unprepared, this is suicide. Duan Quahai was also so anxious that his face turned pale. Jinyuan Dan, come on, Jinyuan Dan. Qin Bing was so anxious that a cold sweat broke out. If Su Shirua had some ups and downs, she couldn't even think about it. It's useless, not to mention the cumbersome process of redeeming Qinhuai Dan from the station, it's just redeeming it. It's not helpful to go back and forth for such a long time. Besides, he was completely unprepared and directly invaded by the spiritual source. Even if he were to obtain the Qinhuai pill, it would be of no use. Su Shu writhed violently, his body becoming extremely hot, red all over, convulsing and foaming at the same time. Just as he was about to collapse, Green Ring uploaded a chill. This strange coldness ran through his fingers, swimming throughout his body. Although it could not act on his blood vessels or stop the high fever, it always kept him in a strange state of violence and non-collapse. Qinhuai flipped over and jumped onto the python, drew out his spear and pointed it directly at Su Shu. Qin Bing, like a furious lioness, rushed forward and said, "Are you crazy? He's a student, and everything has nothing to do with him. Now that it's like this, are you going to kill him?" Qinhuai's eyes turned red and he said in a deep voice, "Shao Qin, please calm down. You can see that he is red all over his body, with a high fever that can't stop. His strength is as strong as his limbs and bones, and his pain is unbearable. The source power has already lost control. If it drags on, either it will explode and die, or it will transform into a demon and fall endlessly. I am helping him free himself." Qin Bing trembled all over, her beautiful eyes tearful, just shaking her head. Qinhuai gritted his teeth and his spear swam in his palm, ready to shoot it out. However, he heard Su Shu curse loudly, "Qinhuai, labor and management trust bird, you're dripping evil." The child was so anxious that they scolded him from the countryside. Qinhuai was surprised and said, he can still call out my name and his mind. "Well, that's impossible." Qin Bing ran to Su Shu's side and said, "Do you still know me? Teacher Qin, can you throw me into the water? It's too hot to bear." Speaking, Su Shu spat out white foam again. The world's wonders. Qinhuai was extremely excited. "What else are you discussing? Move it quickly." Qinhuai quickly tied a rope around Su Shu's waist and said, "It's so hot, it's almost as hot as a soldering iron." With a splash, Su Shu entered the water and white smoke rose from the river surface. Qinhuai pulled the rope and Su Shu surfaced. "Team Duan, hurry up and get the Qinhuai Dan, maybe we can save it." Qinhuai nodded, handed the rope to Qin Bing, rushed into the Dragon King Temple, and climbed up the rope. Su Shufu gasped for breath on the river surface, and the white smoke no longer emitted from the river. The sharp pain and high fever on his body eased slightly. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Extraordinary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Extraordinary. Teacher Qin, what's wrong with me? Why did the Duan team kill me? I've been like this, you wouldn't still keep it a secret from me, would you? Then I'm really dying with my eyes closed. Su Shu said sadly. Qin Bing said urgently, "Don't worry, I'll tell you it is. The leaf you pulled out, I don't know what it's called, but this type of leaf has a collective name called yuanyi. Is it the source fruit opposite to the source leaf? It's like this. Eating yuanyi and yuanguo will give you superpowers. We call it the extraordinary attribute, and this type of person is collectively referred to as the extraordinary. Is there a specific step before taking yuanguo or yuanya? Without this step, it would be extremely dangerous. Actually, taking specific steps can also be extremely dangerous. Of course, your situation is even more dangerous, with almost no life or death. Almost, so there's still someone alive. Yes. Yuanhua and Yuanya first appeared more than a decade ago, with an unknown origin of the Big Bang. This kind of explosion occurred around the world, and later Yuanhua and Yuanya emerged. The extraordinary pioneers, like you, voluntarily or accidentally ingested the source fruit and leaves, allowing the source power to enter the body. In this primitive mode of consumption, a large number of foodies die. As the accumulated quantity increases, there are survivors, and they become the first group of extraordinary beings. Duan's team wants to kill you. It's not that they don't believe you'll be a survivor. Just because your source power has quickly dissipated into all your limbs and bones, burning all your internal parts, it is simply a sign of impending death. What's wrong with the demon? When the source power enters the body, it is easy to lose control. There are two possible outcomes to losing control. One is to die from physical abuse, and the other is to become a monster due to physical alienation, losing memory and reason, collectively known as a demon. Is that beast-sending evil spirit a type of demon? No, the so-called evil spirits only appear in this world after it has a source of power. Their existence is simply the result of the combination of the souls, grievances, and spiritual sources of the deceased. This kind of evil spirit that can be entrusted to animals is called the beast-sending evil spirit. You and Brother Duan are both extraordinary. But why do I see that you have no strength to bind chickens, while Brother Duan is like a hero in a novel storybook, with the ability to rise and fall? Different source fruits mean different pathways. How many pathways are there in total? At present, there should be 9 types. Tishi, Bianin Shi, Jiangtu, Dili Shi, Shuiwan Shi, Thief of Fire, Lufeng Shi, Qiguang Shi, and Bachelor. Can you be more specific? In my understanding, the path of a physical practitioner is martial arts, the path of a discerning yin practitioner is Taoism, the path of a strong disciple corresponds to the power attributes of flesh, blood, darkness, and the moon, the power of the 5 basic elements of land, water, fire, wind, and thunder corresponds to those who benefit from geography, water, fire, wind, and light. The bachelor's path corresponds to the attributes of psychology, destiny, and the power of the sun. Some of these are my own summaries, while others are based on what I've heard. There's no big difference, not necessarily all of them are accurate. Then you must be a yin discerning scholar, and Duan's team must be a physical scholar. After Su Shu finished speaking, Qin Bing nodded. Su Shu Dao said, "Can you elaborate on the capabilities of these pathways?" Qin Bing said, "I'm not sure about the abilities in many ways. Let's just briefly talk about my and Duan's approaches. Distinguishing yin scholars is the first order of the path of discerning yin scholars, therefore this path is called the discerning yin scholar path. After achieving the ability to discern yin, one can view objects in the darkness, master some simple sacrificial techniques, and use peach and wood swords to arrange simple spells. Similarly, Tishi is also the first order of Tishi's path. After achieving Tishi, he has a single arm strength of 300 pounds, agile movements, and strong attack ability. What is your current rank? I am currently in the second order of identifying the path of yin scholars, recruiting yin people. After achieving the goal of recruiting yin people, I can see evil spirits, understand their weaknesses and shortcomings, and draw simple talismans to suppress evil spirits. What about that brother? Duan team is the third rank of the Tishi path. He is a master of foreign martial arts and has a single arm with 1,000 pounds of strength, vision, and endurance far exceeding that of ordinary people. What would be my path then? Su Shu had a strong desire, the power of a single arm weighing 1,000 pounds, how amazing it was. After you successfully integrate your source power, you will naturally know. Qin Bing felt a moment of sadness in her heart. Although Su Shu looked clear now, she didn't think he could get through this calamity. What are the signs of successful integration of source power and body? Qin Bing extended her jade hand, with 10 slender fingers and sparkling nails. Your hands look pretty good. Su Shu doesn't know exactly what a female teacher means. Who showed you this? Qin Bing spat and suddenly clenched her fists. A few seconds later, she spread out and a round copper coin-sized coin appeared in her fair palm. That round 1/3 section appears red, as if the blood stasis has not melted, and the remaining 2/3 are golden. This is the source wheel, the symbol of the extraordinary. When clenched with force and blood is compressed, it will display and disappear in more than 10 seconds. Su Shu quickly clenched his fist and repeatedly tested, but no source chakra appeared. He is not desperate either. At this moment, the heat in his body is still rolling, and according to Duan Qinhuai, he should have lost his mind long ago. Unfortunately, his brain was exceptionally clear, and he was well aware that this mutation was likely caused by the green ring. With a green ring as a backup, he doesn't panic. Teacher Qin, what's going on with the gold and red colors of the yuan wheel? Qin Bing said, if the source wheel is perfect, it will be a complete golden color. Su Shudao said, that is to say, having red means not being perfect. You also need to eat source fruits or leaves to fill the source wheel in your palm. Qin Bing nodded. What other ways do you know? What kind of superhumans have you seen in the highest order? In addition to identifying the ways of yin and ti, I also know the ways of fire thieves. As for the highest order I have ever seen, it is Captain Duan. Ling Yuan has only been around for over a decade, and the advantages of the pioneers may not be insurmountable. In this sense, all superhumans should be considered on the same starting line. Even if someone temporarily leads, it is not impossible to catch up. The current situation of Su Shu has caused Qin Bing to feel a strong sense of guilt. Therefore, when Su Shu asks questions, she always answers them, even more attentively than teaching in the classroom. Qin Bing spoke slowly, but Su Shu suddenly lost her voice. She was startled and quickly pulled the rope, pulling it closer to check her breathing. I'm asleep. Qin Bing was stunned, how painful it was for Yuan Li to enter the body, and this scumbag fell asleep. She could only hold on to the rope, but she didn't excel in physical strength. She persisted for more than half an hour, exhausted, and had no choice but to drag Su Shu ashore. Su Shu still fell asleep, with a high fever on his forehead, but it was not as scorching as before. She returned to the Dragon King Temple, retrieved the long rope, tied a knot with the rope on Su Shu's waist, and tied one end of the long rope to the pillar of the Dragon King Temple, which pushed Su Shu back into the shallow water. Qin Bing, exhausted to the extreme, collapsed on the threshold stone of the Dragon King Temple and unknowingly fell asleep. I don't know how long it has been, but there was a drizzle in the sky. Qin Bing was covered by eaves, and raindrops fell unnoticed. Pop, pop, cold raindrops hit Su Shu's face, and he woke up, feeling much better. I touched my forehead, but it was still scorching badly. Hey, what is this? He found an extra drop of sparkling water on the green ring. Is it possible that these water droplets are formed by the convergence of those stars? He gently rubbed the green ring before touching the water droplets, feeling slippery and sticky. He pressed down hard, and the droplets stuck to his fingers and were taken out. He quickly caught it with his hand, looking left and right. It was a droplet of water. It was placed in front of his nose, and with a gentle sniff, his breath sprayed out. The water droplet melted and dispersed into a smoke, which penetrated through his nasal cavity. Hiss. He trembled in the depths of his soul, an indescribable and wonderful taste struck. The whole person seemed to float up to the clouds, soft, light and joyful. Unfortunately, this ultimate pleasure lasted only a few seconds and disappeared without a trace. Su Shu felt relaxed throughout his body, and when he touched his forehead, the fever had completely subsided. He climbed up from the riverbank, and the drizzling rain was still falling. Not far away, Qin Bing's plump figure was curled up by the threshold, sleeping deeply. Azu. Su Shu hugged his arms tightly, the high fever only subsided, and a chill hit. It was early spring, the temperature was extremely low, and he was drenched and extremely cold. He quickly crawled into the mountain god temple, bypassed his terrifying body, picked up the scattered wood from the previous war, broke the beams, set up the firewood pile, and had no choice but to wake Qin Bing up and ask her for matches. Qin Bing Fan woke up in a daze for a while, then suddenly touched his forehead and exclaimed with joy, the fever has subsided. I'll reach out and take a look. Su Shu reached out, clenched his fist tightly, opened it, and indeed a pale circular shape appeared in his hand. He excitedly hugged Qin Bing and quickly let go, shouting loudly. Qin Bing's face turned slightly red and he said coldly, "Don't be too happy too early. Look at your palm." Su Shu was surprised to find that the circle in his palm had disappeared, and he looked at Qin Bing in surprise. Qin Bing said, "It only indicates that the fusion of the source force is not sufficient, and your source wheel is not stable. But I have never heard of your situation before. The fusion only has two options: success and failure. Failure means either dying of a blood avalanche or surviving a blood avalanche and becoming a demon. And now, although you have condensed the source wheel, it is strange that the source wheel is unstable and in a state between the success and failure of the fusion body." Su Shu thought to himself, could that water droplet be helpful for the fusion of energy sources? It's just that the amount is too small, so the fusion has not been fully achieved. A gust of wind blew and he shivered. He quickly lit the campfire, took off his wet clothes, and left only a pair of flat-bottomed pants. He is tall and muscular, with long legs and narrow waist, and distinct abdominal muscles. Qin Bing is a modern woman, although she feels that Su Shu is bold, she does not act like a little woman, but calmly admires her. Su Shu is a foreign soul, not feeling ashamed. While hanging his wet clothes by the campfire, he asked, "Teacher Qin, according to theory, I have awakened the source wheel and should have extraordinary power. Where is my extraordinary power?" As he spoke, he clenched his fist and said, "I didn't feel any increase in strength." Qin Bing said, "It shows that you are not the path of a physical scholar." As she spoke, an apricot yellow talisman flew from her hand towards Su Shu, circling around his body. "What do you feel?" "I didn't feel anything." Proof is not the way for discerning scholars. Su Shu was very disappointed. Is it because the fusion body is not sufficient that I have not awakened my extraordinary attributes? Qin Bing said, "When the source wheel appears, it will definitely awaken extraordinary abilities. As for which path, we need to try again." "What are you trying? How are you?" Qinhuai suddenly walked towards the front door, with a dusty face and wet clothes, staring at Su Shu in astonishment. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Bachelor's Degree. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Bachelor's Degree. Qin Bing explained the reason, and Qinhuai looked at Su Shu's source wheel and was amazed. "Unfortunately, I don't know what ability to awaken. Coincidentally, I specifically checked the secret scripture. Your leaf has a name called Emperor's Tomb Leaf, which is the top-level source leaf. It awakens through the path of a scholar. Bachelor's Pathway. What does that mean?" Qinhuai said, "Awakening to the extraordinary attributes of a bachelor will have excellent memory and understanding. If used well, it will be extraordinary." Su Shu was slightly disappointed. What he wanted more was the real and powerful force of Qinhuai. What about the other ranks of the bachelor's path? Qinhuai said, "The second order seems to be an observer, but it's unclear what follows. The emergence of the source force has only been more than a decade, and the so-called path and order are only summarized by the extraordinary themselves. Now it seems that the most common way is through physical education. More is not worth it, and through the bachelor's path, you are the first extraordinary person I have come into contact with. In fact, every path, as it progresses to the later order, its power becomes more terrifying. It seems that the higher order of which order will be stronger is still an uncertain number. Perhaps reaching the highest level, one can surpass the mundane and be on par with the gods." Qinhuai pulled out a red round box the size of a palm and handed it to Su Shu, "Qinhuai, but now it seems like you don't need it anymore. But since it's for you, take it." "Did you really get it?" Qin Bing said, "You've used up almost all the accumulated work points, haven't you?" Qinhuai nodded. Su Shu refused and said, "What is the use of Qinhuai? Qinhuai, as the name suggests, Qinhuai has the effect of suppressing the source power after taking it. Don't think that awakening the source will means there is no risk of losing control of the source power. The path of transcendence is destined to always be accompanied by the struggle against loss of control, and this Qinhuai can to some extent pull back the extraordinary who are on the brink of loss. Su Shu touched the clothes next to the bonfire stand and found that they were almost done. While getting dressed, he said, I was just in that situation. Is Qinhuai useful? Qinhuai shook his head and said, it's probably useless, but we have to give it a try. Alright, hurry up and take it. Su Shu waved his hand and said, since it's useless, what should I do? Team Duan, if you really want to give me a reward, let me join your team. Qinhuai is a good person, and Qin Bing can handle it as well. The main reason is that Su Shu does not want to lose the only way to connect with the extraordinary circle. Qinhuai smiled and said, I know you're a smart kid. I can promise to take you out of the mission, but I won't be able to implement the plan for a while. Su Shu is brave and strategic, mainly because of his good quality, and he is very satisfied. Moreover, there is a unique approach. Even if Su Shu doesn't mention joining the team, Qinhuai will still find a way to include him in the team. There will always be a salary if there is no staffing. Su Shu took the wallet handed over by Qin Bing and thought of his past struggles, feeling uneasy in his heart. No staffing, we can only provide some subsidy from the case handling funds. How much? I'll check this. The more Qinhuai spoke, the more he felt guilty. I'll come up with a solution for the preparation. It's almost time, and if I don't go back, I'll have to spend the night here again. Qin Bing is too lazy to bargain like a businessman. Wait a moment. Qinhuai arrived at the position of the python's head, and with a sweep of his spear, his two sharp fangs were cut off. Immediately after, he opened the python's belly and picked out a hot watermelon-sized snake gallbladder. They are all good things. Qinhuai took out a cloth bag and packed it. The three of them left the gate of the Dragon King Temple, took a small boat rowed by Qinhuai, and returned to the altar. An hour later, the altar was surrounded by villagers from Qinhuai village. On the huge firewood pile, the python's head, which was the size of a grinding plate, was erected, and a bucket of fire oil was poured on it, instantly igniting a raging fire. The python, which was harbored by evil spirits, has developed too terrifyingly. In order to fear frightening the people, it dare not reveal its entire body, but it must also comfort the heart. Qinhuai made the decision, cut off its head, and burned it in public. As the huge python head turned into rolling black smoke, the crowd was separated, and Yang Shenhua, the village chief of Qinhuai village, was escorted by Qiao Jiang and several security officers towards a prisoner's car. Yang Shenhua, wearing handcuffs and ankle shackles, shouted loudly, "Villagers, I am wronged. I am also here for the sake of Qinhuai village. You cannot forget your kindness." With the death of King Helong, the villagers of Qinhuai village were no longer in danger of survival, and the authority of the government was re-established. Although many villagers agree with Yang Shenhua's words, no one dares to stand out in the current Wang Fa era. Qiao Jiang and his group bowed to Qinhuai and the others from a distance, escorted Yang Shenhua onto the prisoner's carriage, and turned around to leave. Kong, 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 3 wheels rolled over the mud, swaying in all directions. Qinhuai was leaning in the sidearm, swaying left and right, snoring profusely while sleeping. Qin Bing held onto Su Shu's clothes tightly, struggling against inertia, occasionally stumbling, angrily glancing at Qinhuai, who had snatched her exclusive throne. At nightfall, Bien Sanluan stopped in front of an abandoned repair shop on Tongla Road. This is a bright red brick and tile house, with a large yard and cluttered corners. After getting off the car, Qinhuai asked Su Shu to drive it away and come over for maintenance tomorrow. Qinhuai withdrew and Qin Bing sat back in his sidearm. Half an hour later, Su Shu finished seeing Qin Bing off and returned to his own home, a narrow and solitary courtyard. This is the only inheritance left by his cheap father who has fought for half his life. After finishing a pound of noodles and washing them, he lay in bed, pushed open the window, and placed them in the evening breeze and starry sky. He began to plan his way forward, thinking about it, and ended up sleeping in a daze. The next morning, Qinhuai stood by the sink with a printed towel hanging around his neck, pressing water to brush his teeth. Su Shu came in with 2 bags of steaming pickled Chinese cabbage buns and a bucket of millet porridge. Qinhuai exclaimed in shock, "Why are you here if you don't go to school? You can come back after school to fix your car." Su Shu asked him to wash his hair first, shook the food in his hand, and gestured to eat while speaking. After Qinhuai finished washing, the two of them set up a shabby square table in the miscellaneous shed in the yard, eating and drinking. Su Shu finished taking 2 bites in 3 and put down his chopsticks, expressing his intention. "Learn skills. Follow me." Qinhuai looked at Su Shu in surprise and said, "It's not that I'm a self-made person. I can't teach this thing. You're a bachelor's path, and I'm a scholar's path. The source power is different. Even if I'm willing to teach, you can't learn it. If you can't learn advanced skills, just learn some self-defense skills." He knew that source power was the key, and it was unrealistic to have the ability to go back and forth in the vast sea of learning. But with combat power that surpasses ordinary people, one can still work hard. At least, the next time they encounter Chao Daming, there is no need for Zhang Xing to be waving his teeth and claws on the side. "I'll teach you a set of small capture techniques, and it's easy to deal with 3 or 5 thieves." "But, is that what you're looking for, kid?" Qinhuai shook the pickled Chinese cabbage bun in his hand. Su Shuxiang said, "Isn't this poor? When Brother Duan gives you a subsidy, I'll treat you to a good meal." He is indeed living a tight life. Yesterday, before entering the iron cage, he handed over his wallet to Qin Bing for safekeeping. There was less than 7 yuan in it, which was his ex's living expenses for 2 months. But he couldn't stand the days when he stopped eating mantou and pickled vegetables. Qinhuai chuckled and said, "I will definitely give you your subsidy, but I will have to wait until the 13th. I will pay my salary before that. Let's tentatively set it at 5 yuan per month." "I don't know what to say about this price code, Su Shu. Currently, a newly hired high school teacher earns a monthly salary of around 18 yuan. Qinhuai offered him 5 yuan, which is definitely not high and justifiable. "It's not that I'm stingy, it's just that your sister.in.law has a tight eye on it. It's all up to me to extract money from cigarettes. I don't smoke red plums, I have to smoke wild wolves. I can only extract these 5 yuan. Qinhuai's face was full of sincerity. Su Shu looked at the abandoned repair shop and thought to himself, "Brother Duan, what kind of team are we? Not to mention the low budget, this office location is also too shabby. If it's a grassroots team, I won't get involved in it." Qinhuai took out an iron chest badge with 2 vertical bars and put it on. "You've always seen this thing before. Can the grass platform team have this? The 9th team is a pioneer, and the budget is tight. You need to understand." On the way back from Xiahe village, Qin Bing popularized the hierarchical system for Su Shu. He knew that there were 5 levels within the system, with chest plaques made of gold, silver, copper, iron, and lead, distinguishing between top and bottom. At the same time, each rank is divided into primary and secondary levels, with 2 vertical lines on the primary badge and only 1 vertical line on the secondary badge. Vice President Tan, who was listening to the class that day, had an iron plaque standing upright, while Chao Jiang, the head of the grassroots security room, had a lead plaque standing upright. According to Su Shu's understanding, Chao Jiang is a regular shareholder, Vice President Tan is a deputy director, and Qinhuai needs to be a regular director. With such a calculation, he stood in awe. No matter what year or world, Qinhuai is definitely a powerful figure in the grassroots system. Su Shu shrugged and said, "How many guns do our 9th team have?" Qinhuai said, "The 9th team has been newly established, and currently there are only me and Xiao Qin, one captain and one vice-captain." Su Shu looked at Qinhuai incredulously and said, "You two officials are in charge of the relationship, are you just a soldier?" Qinhuai waved his hand and said, "Don't be so confident. You may not be able to become a soldier as well. Alright, let's not talk about anything else. Isn't it necessary to learn small capture techniques? Then come on." Qinhuai picked up a one-person tall wooden figure from the east wing, with his feet inserted into a black chassis. The chassis is filled with sand particles, creating a tumbler-like structure. The wooden figure is marked with many acupoints and meridians throughout its body, and this object was used as a training tool by Qinhuai earlier. At present, Qinhuai used this wooden dummy to talk to Su Shu about the bones, joints, meridians, and acupoints of the human body. Su Shu was stunned, and the extraordinary attributes of the scholar immediately showed their brilliance. He seemed to have a pure white space in his mind, and every word and sentence spoken by Qinhuai automatically appeared in the pure white space. End of this chapter.